Hey everyone, welcome to this highly analytical explainer. We've put this session together specifically under the expert guidance of instructor Zohaib Ahmed Anjum for your CSS 2027 and PMS exam preparation. We're going to be focusing squarely on current and Pakistan affairs. Today, we're diving deep into a truly defining aspect of Pakistan's geopolitical landscape. My goal here is to make sure you walk away not just with a list of facts, but with a rock-solid, structured understanding that you can plug directly into your exam papers. So here is our overarching theme for today. We need to evaluate exactly how Pakistan manages the delicate strategic balance between China and the United States. And alongside that, we're going to analyze the massive shift from foundational infrastructure building to deep industrial integration under the current economic frameworks. We're going to break all of this down into a really structured, high-scoring essay outline for you.
All right, think of this roadmap as your actual CSS paper outline. We're going to cover 1. Introduction, 75 years strong. 2. Strategic balance, U.S. versus China. 3. Geoeconomics, CPAC Phase 2. 4. Emerging security and defense ties. 5. Regional diplomacy and middle powers. And finally, 6. Conclusion, the future trajectory.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, Introduction, 75 years strong, where we are evaluating a completely transforming superpower relationship. You know, when you look at the timeline of this relationship, it reveals a really fundamental change. The China of the Cold War, where these foundational ties were actually built, is absolutely not the China of today. Then, post-2011, friction with the U.S. over the Osama bin Laden operation and the Salalah border incident naturally pushed Islamabad much closer to Beijing. But here is the absolutely critical analytical point for your essays. Today, Pakistan shares a border with a modern global superpower. It's not just a rising neighbor anymore. This new reality brings completely unprecedented strategic dilemmas, new opportunities, and massive dependencies that Pakistan has literally never navigated before.
Moving right along to Section 2, Strategic Balance, U.S. versus China. This is really the realist framework of Pakistan's foreign policy. Talk about a tightrope walk. This illustrates the dynamic perfectly. Historically, through alliances like SEATO and CENTO, and honestly even today, Pakistan relies super heavily on the U.S.-led order for its macroeconomic survival. We're talking about vital export markets and access to international financial institutions. But on the flip side, when it comes to hard security, strategic cover, quick financial lifelines, and regional connectivity, Pakistan leans incredibly hard on its Chinese partnership. It is a true dual dependency. Islamabad basically relies on the U.S. for economic oxygen and on China for an iron shield.
So, what do we actually call this balancing act? Make sure you use this exact phrasing in your exams. The equidistant posture. It's the diplomatic strategy of keeping absolute strategic closeness and trust with Beijing, while simultaneously hanging on to necessary diplomatic flexibility and vital economic ties with Washington. But, as our sources point out, with global polarization deepening between the U.S. and China, maintaining this genuinely equidistant posture, it's getting incredibly tough.
All right, Section 3. Geoeconomics, CPEC Phase 2. We're looking at the transition from basic infrastructure to industrial embeddedness.
If you want to show your examiners you really get CPEC's evolution, use this comparison. Phase 1 was strictly foundational. It fixed critical energy shortages and basic infrastructure gaps. Basically, it was about keeping the lights on and paving roads. Phase 2, which is happening right now, is a whole different ballgame. It focuses on profound industrial embeddedness. We are shifting away from passive financial aid toward generating robust, autonomous economic vitality through special economic zones. It's a huge leap from just pouring concrete to high-tech agricultural modernization and massive technology transfers. And to score top marks, you need specifics. Citing these massive flagship mega projects adds incredible weight to your economic analysis. For example, the $6.6 billion ML1 railway upgrade, that is the logistical spine of this whole transformation, aiming to drastically cut supply chain costs from Karachi all the way to Peshawar. Then you have the realignment of the Karakoram Highway to secure it against climate change. And definitely don't forget the B2B agricultural sector. They're actively deploying heat-tolerant hybrid crops and localized foot and mouth disease vaccines. This isn't just building. This is an infrastructural and technological metamorphosis designed to rebuild Pakistan's long-term macroeconomic stability. Okay, highlight this phrase in your notes: demographic dividend. Chinese labor-intensive industries are actively hunting for new production hubs because their own demographics and costs at home are shifting.
Pakistan, with its massive, young population, is perfectly positioned to absorb that enormous manufacturing shift. If they manage this correctly, this demographic dividend is literally the golden ticket to fundamentally altering Pakistan's entire economic trajectory.
Which brings us nicely to Section 4, Emerging Security and Defense Ties, the Iron Shield protecting all those economic ambitions.
Incorporating expert perspectives is absolutely vital for a good essay. Quoting Chinese scholars like Huang Yunsong on the recent dual leadership visit by Pakistan's Prime Minister and the Chief of Army Staff shows you understand exactly how Beijing views Pakistan's internal dynamics. As Yunsong says, it projects strong and seamless civil-military alignment. This unified front eliminates strategic fluctuation and guarantees institutional continuity at the highest levels of statecraft. To Beijing, that kind of continuity isn't just nice to have, it's a strict requirement for multi-billion-dollar, decades-long commitments.
And the result of that trust? A rapidly deepening defense integration. Our sources note that the Sino-Pak partnership is actually becoming distinctly more security-driven. China now accounts for the overwhelming majority of Pakistan's arms imports. But honestly, it goes way beyond just buying weapons now. We are looking at long-term defense industrial integration. We're talking co-production initiatives, super deep intelligence sharing, rapid naval modernization, and embedding advanced Chinese electronic warfare countermeasures right into Pakistan's defensive grid to fight asymmetric threats.
But here is a highly critical point you must mention: internal security. Beijing's tolerance is heavily shaped right now by Islamabad's ability to protect Chinese engineers, workers, and CPEC projects from proxy separatist forces and hostile UAV networks. They're actually developing co-managed joint security frameworks. Now, the sources emphasize that this is being done while fully respecting Pakistan's sovereignty, but the reality is, securing Chinese nationals is without a doubt the most sensitive and paramount dimension of bilateral ties today.
Let's move to Section 5, Regional Diplomacy and Middle Powers, how to create diplomatic space in a really polarized world. So, how does Islamabad relieve the immense pressure of superpower competition? They pivot regionally. We see Pakistan actively expanding defense and economic partnerships with key middle powers, places like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt. After playing a really vital mediation role in past U.S.-Iran crises, their ongoing and future strategy relies heavily on solidifying these middle power alignments. It essentially ensures Pakistan isn't totally dependent on just Washington or Beijing.
By jumping into Gulf security and mediating complex regional fault lines, Pakistan anchors the whole region and deters geopolitical adventurism. The sources literally call this masterclass peacemaking diplomacy, and here is the so what for your thesis. Beijing watches this with profound respect. They actively encourage Pakistan to act as an independent pole of regional stability rather than just being a pawn on a superpower chessboard. This kind of diplomatic agility gives Islamabad the exact flexibility it needs to survive intense U.S.-China pressures.
All right, final stretch, Section 6, Conclusion, the future trajectory. Let's synthesize all this strategic and economic analysis. Here are your final, hard-hitting analytical takeaways. First, the nature of the China-Pakistan relationship has fundamentally shifted. It's moving away from grand, abstract economic promises and leaning heavily into pragmatic, concrete defense and industrial integration. Second, the success of CPEC Phase 2 relies 100% on deep industrial embeddedness and bulletproof internal security protocols. And finally, to survive global polarization, Pakistan absolutely must leverage its demographic dividend economically and its middle power diplomacy geopolitically. That is the only way to sustain that crucial equidistant posture.
I want to leave you with this exact, provocative question drawn straight from our sources. As global polarization intensifies, how will a superpower China ultimately view a close neighbor that fundamentally must continue maintaining vital, life-saving economic ties with Beijing's principal rival, the United States? Use this question as a prompt to practice your own CSS thesis writing and really push your analytical thinking further. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep studying hard and good luck with your prep.